Bismillahirrahmanirrahim wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. When we were studying Marifa, I said that we did not have to study Nakira because what is not classified as Marifa will be considered to be Nakira. However, having said that, at this point in time it is important to study at least two types of Nakira. There are not only clearly two types of Nakira, there are more than two, but these two are quite important and I thought we should study these in detail. So Ism Nakira could be divided into these two main types. Ism Zaat and Ism Siffah. Now this is a bit of a revision from last time that I have pronounced that Ism Zaat, and the reason for that is this is lam of definiteness, and from here I have gone direct to Zal because Zal is sun letter, and coincidentally Swad is also sun letter here, so Ism Siffah, Siffati. We said last time that the reason for this is because these two words, Lam and Zal, their articulation point in our oral cavity is quite near to one another, are exactly the same. So having the same articulation point, what is the Arabic terminology? So the Arabic terminology is being ham makhrij. We should become familiar with this terminology as well, ham makhrij. Kharaja yakhruju means to go out or to exit. Kharaja yakhruju. So Madi Mudare, and there is the masdar is khuruj, which means exiting or action of exit. And then from this then we have makhraj or makhraj, sometimes both pronunciations are correct. Makhraj, makhrajun. This is the place of exiting. So the place from where those two words exit, kind of, if they're close together, then this rule applies. So that will be classed as sun letter. And for sun letters and moon letters, the Arabic terminology is that harf is singular, harfun, plural will be hurufun, and those which fall into this category will be called hurufu shamsiya, huruf shamsiya. So where does this ya come from? It is like saying Pakistan and Pakistani. So when we write Pakistani in Urdu, ya is added. It's that kind of ya of ownership. That's a bit of advanced topics, we're not going to go into that. So huruf al-shamsiya, and the others are huruf al-kamariya, moon letters. ruful kamariyatu. So sun letters, moon letters, that's the Arabic terminology of these words. Lastly, before we go to our today's topic, last time I did spelling mistake when writing ayah from Surah Quraysh. The ayah is that fal ya'budu rabba hazal bayti. So I did not add this alif of haza in there. In other Arabic writing you can perhaps drop that, but in Quranic ayahs, when we write full ayah, it has to be written exactly the way it is in Quran, and in any case this alif is part of haza, so it has to be written here, and this what looks like alif is hamza of al-bayt. So when we combine this with this word, so we go to, this is a moon letter, and we go from there to there, and in doing so this is not pronounced and this is also not pronounced. They're both there in writing, but they do not come in pronunciation. So it was important to make that correction. Now ism nakra, so we have got ism zaat and ism siffah. Let's focus on ism zaat first. Ism zaat. All these words fall into the category of ism zaat. Ism zaat is the kind of name of an entity, we can say, name of entity such as person. So not person as the name of a person, that will be ism alam. Ism zaat will be person, kind of the genus person. For example, genus is biology term, it's quite good one, not genus or gender, genus or species, I think is another word as well, species. So if we say, for example, a person is rajulun man. So rajulun is a person from the genus of men, and similarly we can have a genus of women, for example. So we'll say imra'atun, woman, rajulun, man. We have a shopping center close by, and there is a shop called Mankind. So men as a genus or species, mankind, I think that should be the translation of that. Similarly, there could be womenkind, fish kind, cattle kind. So that's what this person means. So name of person could be name of a place, not a specific place such as Makkah, that will be ism alam, but it's in this general terminology. Animal, the name of that could be an animal, and could be a thing, and may also be in non-living things, entities that are not physical, for example. So these are quite a few words which are all ism zaat, examples of ism zaat. For example, we have here waladun, boy, child, ibnun, son, bintun, girl or daughter, used for both. Rajulun, man, imra'atun, woman, madinatun, city. Madinatun, any city, not al-Madinatu, which is name of a specific city in Saudi Arabia. So Madinatun, a city. Baytun, house, a house. Hadikatun, garden. Kalbun, dog. Dajajatun, hen. Dikun, rooster. Asadun, lion. And Hisanun, horse. So quite a few words. This is kind of our vocabulary as well, you know. So nice to be familiar with these words. I wanted to point out a couple of things here. For example, let's look at this. Hadikatun is garden, and there is another word for garden, Jannatun. Jannatun is also garden. Jannatun is a garden in which there is excessive growth, which is lush green, and sometimes this is so much greenery that you cannot even see sunlight on the ground, so there is excessive growth. So that's Jannah, any garden. And then Al Jannatu will be a specific place. We are familiar with that. So Jannatun, garden. Hadikatun is garden. Hadika, if you go to Dubai next time, just wherever you see a park, you will see written Hadika. So it's kind of park kind of thing, that kind of garden. And there is another word called Bustanun. Bustanun, that's also garden. And this garden is kind of private garden where you have high walls, it's surrounded by high walls. There may be boundary in Hadika as well, park boundary, but this is kind of purely private and very high walls. So that's Bustan. So at least 3 words for garden in Arabic with minor differences in the meaning. That's one point. Another point, I can see here some words. These are Ibnun, for example. Ibnun. Imra'atun. And also Ism, which has been using Isman. So these all has got this Hamza, and then we have said Hamza of Lam of definiteness, Al. That's also Hamza. Hamza of Al always takes Fatha, and these others tends to take Kasira. That's one difference. And the other is that most of the words which start with Hamza that Hamza will be Hamzatul Qat'a, it will be pronounced, even there is something before that. But the Hamza in these words specifically, this is also Hamza of that kind, Hamzatul Wasl. This Hamza, when something comes, a word comes before that, this Hamza will be dropped in pronunciation just the way Hamza of Lam of definiteness is dropped. So for example, Isabna Maryama. So Isabna Maryama is mentioned in Quran. So what's happening here is that Hamza is not pronounced. So this is Hamzatul Wasl. Similarly, there's another example, Bismi Rabbikal Lazi. So we write like this, Bismi Rabbikal Lazi. So from this is Ba. So from Ba we go to Sin. We do not pronounce Hamza of Ism. So rather than Bi Ism, actually this is Bi Ism, but this is dropped in pronunciation. So Bismi Rabbikal Lazi Khalaq. So these Hamzas are also, they fall into the category of Hamzatul Wasl. Right. There is another word here, Baytun. Baytun is for house, and this is masculine. And there is another word for Bayt is Darun. That's also house. But there is a subtle difference between the two, the nuance of that. It's Baytun is from bata yabitu, which means to spend the night. The verb is bata madi and mudare will be yabitu. Yabitu, bata yabitu, which means to spend the night. So from that we have bait, house, in that meaning. On the other hand, from darun we have dara yaduru, dara yaduru, madi mudare yaduru, which basically means to go around, the place where you move around and move with kind of freedom. So it is, darun is in that kind of meaning, but both means in translation means house. One final point before we go to ismu siffah is that we said that we can make from masculine we can make feminine by adding ta marbuta to that word. In ismu zaat, most of the time we cannot do that. There's one example here which is an exception. For example, kalbun, kalbun is a he dog, and we can make by adding ta marbuta, we can make this feminine, it will become kalbatun. So he dog, she dog. So that's an exception. But otherwise, for example, if we look here, deacon, rooster, so we cannot make this feminine by adding deekatun. That word doesn't exist. So similarly, rajulun, we cannot say rajulatun. That doesn't exist. Rajulun, we have imra'atun, the opposite of that. Similarly, bintun, ibnun, and bintun, they are, we can, yeah, so these are different words. Very occasionally these words can take ta marbuta and become feminine. Most of the time that does not apply to ismu zaat. And let us move on to ismu siffah. I have some words written here beforehand. Sure you can see them. Okay. So these are the words which belong to the category of ismu siffah, which basically means the name denoting an attribute. Ismu siffah. Ismu siffah, the name denoting an attribute. And in Arabic, siffah could be positive as well as negative. For example, here there's a word here, hasanun, beautiful or good, and opposite is kabihun, which is ugly or foul. So this is siffah and this is also siffah. So siffah could in Arabic could be positive as well as negative. Most of the time it tends to be positive, but it could easily be a negative attribute as well. So that was the first point about ismu siffah. The words are kabirun, big, old, sagirun, small, young, tawilun, tall or long, kasirun, short, karimun, generous, bakhilun, miserly or stingy, skilun, heavy, khafifun, light. These are opposites as well, so easy to remember. Sakil kind of is heavy on the tongue as well, so sakilun, and khafifun is light. Kawiyan, strong. Da'ifun is weak. Jadidun, new. Kadimun, old. This is old here and this is translation old here as well. So this old will apply to a person. If we want to say somebody is old, we will say kabir. Rajulun kabirun, for example, old person. We will not say rajulun kadimun, because kadim doesn't apply to living things. Kadim, for example, we can say old car. So we will say as-sayyaratun kadimatun. So old car or ancient, or this will apply to the time as well, but not to persons. Ba'idun far, qaribun near, hasanun beautiful, good, kabihun ugly. So quite a few words here. You may have noticed already that these fall in the pattern of fa'ilun. Now we are familiar with the roots and patterns. So fa'ilun, and the root letters are fa, ain and lam in fa'ilun, and here we will see, because ya is common among these words, so ya doesn't make part of the root letters. So the root letters are easy to identify here: kaf, ba, ra, kaf, ra, mim, okay, ha, fa and fa. So we can easily identify what are the root letters, and the pattern is that of fa'ilun. Now this pattern is a pattern of ism siffah, one pattern of ism siffah. There are other patterns as well, and this signifies excessiveness and persistence of the attribute, or perpetuality of that attribute. That attribute which is there's a lot of it, and also that it persists, it doesn't come and go, kind of thing. I will give you example of a word and it will become very clear. For example, Allah's name, one of them is Rahim. Rahiman, and when we add alif lam, so that becomes Ar-Rahim, and the tamim goes. So Rahim is Ra Ha Mim is the root. Ra Ha Mim is root, something to do with compassion. Ra Ha Mim. So Rahim is compassionate. Okay. So Rahim, the attribute of compassion will be there all the time, and there will be lots and lots of it as well. It's not that Allah is Rahim now and not in 5 minutes time. So it is there. This quality is there all the time, present all the time. From this Ra Ha Mim we can have another word on the pattern of fa'ilun, which will be Rahimun. For example, Rahimun. Rahimun. This alif is extra here in a way that it's not part of the root letters. So Ra Ha Mim. So Rahimun, there's no persistence here of this attribute, and it doesn't have to be excess of that either. For example, if a suppressive statesman sometimes could be Rahim, or Fir'aun Siffah person occasionally may be Rahim, showing compassion shortly for a brief period of time and once in a while. So that quality will be kind of not persistent quality. So this pattern fa'ilun, when we use this Ra Ha Mim, it doesn't give that meaning which is of that of Rahim. So Allah is not Rahim, but Allah is actually Rahim, because that attribute is present all the time and to an excessive degree. So this is the pattern of fa'ilun. Every noun doesn't fall into that category. For example, hasanun doesn't fall into that category. It is kind of fa'alun. The pattern is that of fa'alun, and then there are other patterns as well, but those which fall into this category, they will go give that kind of meaning. The last point here is that in ism Zaat we said that you cannot, most of the time you cannot add ta marbuta to make a masculine, convert a masculine noun to feminine. In ism siffah you can do that always. Kabirun kabiratun, sagirun sagiratun, tawilun tawilatun, karimun karimatun. Okay, daifun daifatun. So what we do is, I think we mentioned that previously as well, that what we do is the last letter. For example, we take jadidun, so what we do is we remove the tanween from here and give us fatha. and this will always be fatha. It cannot be kasra, it cannot be dhamma, always fatha, and there's no exception to this rule. So from jadidan it's become jadida and ta marbuta jadidatan. So jadidan jadidatun, khadiman khadimatun, baidan baidatun. So all these asma which are ism siffah, from masculine we can make feminine nouns by adding ta marbuta. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik.